Hello people. In my last vlog I praised a couple of motorcycle dealerships that gave me good service. I thought it was better than complaining. Today's story is quite the opposite. But before I tell you what happened, let me explain first of all that this was the first Harley Davidson I ever built. My only comparison was the demo bike that I had taken out a couple of weeks before, and also the fact that when I bought the bike, the Oxford Harley Davidson dealership was owned by the Magic Group. As you'll learn, they weren't Magic, and they're now, and they were taken over during this process of what happened by Blade, and Blade were brilliant in what they did for me. But let me explain to you what happened. Back then I chose my first Harley Davidson, and the one I chose was chosen because it was similar to the sort of ride that I've been used to, like on Suzuki Bandits and on my Bonneville. The riding position is what I mean. So I went for the Sportster Roadster, and I'll put a picture up of it so you can see what I mean. It had central pegs. It was a very normal, if you like, riding position. It wasn't feet forward or anything like not a cruiser position, or didn't have footboards or anything like that. And it had a rev counter, and I used to do quite a bit of my riding with the rev counter. I know I shouldn't, instead of the speedo, but I chose that. The only thing I didn't like about it was the fact that it had a little peanut tank, and I changed the tank for a bigger tank, so I kept having to fill up all the time. And I did what lots of people did back in those days. I took all the black covers off and put nice shiny chrome covers on, and I totally transformed this bike. I'll show you a picture of what it looked like afterwards. But I did chrome quite a few bits, and that's relevant to what's coming up now. When I bought the bike, I had a choice. I could either, back then I think they called it either stage 1, 2 or 3. One was basically slip-ons and a high flow air filter. Stage 2 was slip-ons, high flow air filter, and a different carburettor. Yes, it had a carburettor, people. Didn't have electronic fuel injection, it had a carburettor. And stage 3 was stage 2 plus engine modifications. You could get sort of high performance cams and things fitted so that you get better performance out of the bike. I couldn't afford stage 3, so I went for stage 2. And one Saturday, the Oxford Harley chapter were having a ride out, and rather than go straight to the dealership, I diverted to a friend of mine because he was also going on the ride out. And we both rode together from his house up to the dealership. And he was riding an 883 Sportster. And his Sportster would look like he'd picked it off of a dump. It was almost a rat bike. He didn't clean it, he didn't do anything with it, he just rode it and got it serviced. When we got out onto the dual carriageway and started sort of motoring, I couldn't keep up with him. And I was on a 1200 Sportster, and I'm thinking, hold on a minute, my Sportster should go faster than this. So when we got to the dealership, I asked them to have a look at it, because obviously something was wrong. And after about half an hour, they came back out and they said, who fitted the carburettor cover? Well, that was me. I said, I did. And they said, it's the wrong cover. So I said, well, oh my God, I bought that off eBay. It was listed as a CV carb cover, and if it's not a CV carb cover, then I go back and get my money back off of him. And what I'd done is I've managed to split the rubber inside the carburettor, which is why the performance was low. He said, no, it is a CV carb cover, you haven't got a CV carb. And I'm thinking, hold on. Now bearing in mind this was now Blade Group. Blade had just taken over. So they said, what do you think you've got? And I said I should have high flow air filter, I knew I had slip-ons, I could see them and hear them, and I should have a replacement carb. No, you haven't. They lent me a bike so that I could go home and get the paperwork to show them what I paid to Magic Group to have these mods done. And sure enough, on my invoice for about £1,300 were the exhausts, the high flow air filter and the carburettor. I didn't have the high flow air filter. I wouldn't know that because it was in the same housing, and I didn't have the replacement carburettor. And to be honest, I hadn't looked to see what the differences were, because I assumed the differences were inside, like it was jetted differently, so for better performance. So they kind of said, well, we're really sorry, but you haven't had those mods. And I paid over £1,000 for those mods. Now, they were brilliant, Blade themselves. What they did was they said, we can fit all those parts for you free of charge. And I said, no, don't bother, because I've just seen a street bob outside that I quite like. How about you do me a deal, and instead of fitting those parts and the labour and everything's involved, you do me a deal on the street bob. And that's what I did. That was my first upgrade from the Sportster to a street bob, and I got it at a very good price. It didn't hardly cost me anything to upgrade, because these guys were so apologetic, and it wasn't even their fault. It was the people that owned the dealership before. But it sort of raised that question, when you're new to a particular bike, like that was my first Harley, the Sportster Roadster, is how do you know that you're getting what you're paying for? And really, unless you talk to other people and say, well, I've got this, that and the other, I wouldn't have known. I knew the performance was down only because I rode with my mate up to the dealership to go on that ride out. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. It didn't, even though there was a little split in the rubber on the carburettor, it didn't run badly. It just didn't run as well as his 883, and it should have done. So that's the story. That's how I paid over £1,000 for modifications to my Harley that were never carried out. If you're a biker, you ride safe. If you're not a biker, you be safe. And thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys. Bye.